It's been a little while since I looked at a new controller. EasySMX sent over the D05 gaming controller. This is supposed to be their highest end offering, and this is supposed to compete with a lot of the big options we have in the community. I want to see how this fares, and let's definitely compare it to a few other high-end controllers. Let's just hop in and take a closer look at the D05 gaming controller. So before we open this, what exactly is the D05? It looks like a pretty high-end controller from what they say on the box, but let's check out the website and see what this is all about. Hopping over to their website, it's actually the first one that pops up, so let's click on it and take a closer look. This is a little bit more of an expensive controller, coming in at $67 US, and it only comes in black. However, this controller does have a lot going for it. As with most EasySMX products, this comes with Hall effect triggers and joysticks. This is the first controller that they have that comes with a dock. This lets you charge the controller pretty effortlessly. And one reason that I wanted to check this out was I really like fast responsive controllers. This one comes with 1000 Hz polling rate joysticks. As it currently sits, I only have two controllers that have 1000 Hz polling rate, and I'll compare those to this one as well. Now 1000 Hz doesn't always necessarily mean it's going to be a responsive controller, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to have low input latency. I've been using the KK3 Max for a little while from Gulikit, and even though it has 1000 Hz polling rate, it does have quite a lot of input latency. This one also comes with some Hall effect triggers, and I'll take a closer look at those later, but overall they do look pretty impressive. There's also a little bit of RGB on this too, if that's kind of your thing. As for me, I'll probably leave the RGB off so I can maximize the battery life. They also have a nice little comparison chart here on the bottom of their page, showing you the different models and kind of the things that they offer. The only feature that I see lacking on this is motion control. If you want that, I would definitely look at the X10. I do have a review up for the X10 if you're interested. I'll leave that link down below as well. So for $67 US, is the D05 worth it? Well, let's open it up, take a closer look. This is the box they ship the controller in. Tells you a little bit more about the controller. You can see a little bit of what the controller looks like on the side, and on the back, there's an overview of the controller itself. There's nothing on the bottom of their top, so let's open this up. The controller's just inside here. It looks to be wrapped pretty nice. In the box, there's a little manual, just in case we need to learn how to use any of the controls or functions. It's always nice to see. In the bottom of the box, we have the stand. It does seem to show fingerprints. Honestly, the quality of the stand is a little disappointing. It feels really hollow, very light, and very plasticky. As long as it does its job though, that should be fine. On the back, there's a USB-C port, and there's a USB-A port. On the bottom, there's nothing, but there is two rubber feet to stop it from moving around. On the top, there's two little metal prongs that connect to the controller for charging, and the little back paddles kind of sit in these little holes here. You also get a small USB-A dongle for connecting the controller. Underneath the controller, the only other thing that I have in the box is a USB-A to USB-C cable, and of course the controller itself. So let's open this up, take a closer look at it. And there's the controller. First impressions are pretty decent with this. It does look really high quality, but it has a very soft matte coating on the top, and that's kind of one thing I'm worried about. Let's do a quick overview of the controller. On the front, we have a lot going on. We got the two joysticks here. There's a nice D-pad on the front. You have the A, B, X, Y button, the start and select buttons. There's also a function button on the front and a turbo button, as well as the button to turn it on. On the top, there's nothing except the USB-C port, two gold triggers, which honestly, I really dig this styling. The matte black front and the transparent plastic with this gold looks really nice. On the back, there's two programmable paddles. These are rubber membrane, as are most of the things on this controller. The bumpers do have a switch underneath them, but it's more of a soft click than a really hollow click. Everything on this controller, from the face buttons to the start and select, and the D-pad is all rubber membrane. There's a nice click underneath the joysticks themselves, so first impressions are pretty good. It feels like a pretty solid controller. This is one reason why I worry about the matte black coating on the EasySMX controller. Now this is after trying to clean it up. I just used a clean rag with some water on it and just kind of tried to wipe it up. I also tried to use some rubbing alcohol, but unfortunately this is just how bad the plastic is on the KK3 Max. Most of this plastic has started to wear down, and it really looks horrible. By comparison, the retro one that I also have looks much better, and the gray doesn't look like it's worn down as much, even though it is. That that soft coating attracts a ton of dust. This plastic also feels very similar to the KK3 Max, which is why I'm really worried about it. However, from my time using this, it seems to be okay so far, but I'll leave a pinned comment down below if this changes. Honestly, the controller that I think does the best at the quality of the plastic are the controllers from 8BitDo. 8BitDo plastics kind of have like a texture to it. It resists wear really good. Out of all the controllers that I currently own, this is absolutely my favorite. This is the special edition of their 8BitDo Ultimate 2C Wireless. This is the Wukong edition, and it looks just fabulous. I've used this pretty extensively, and the plastic looks brand new. So these are the 3 controllers that I want to compare today. I want to take a look at the EasySMX controller and see how it stacks up to these 2 other high-end controllers. This used to be my main controller before migrating over to the 2C Ultimate Wireless. I want to talk about the ergonomics first. Out of all 3 of these controllers, which one do I find the most comfortable? Let's start off with the EasySMX controller. Well, it's got a nice grip on the side, lets you wrap your hands around, and the plastic feels really comfortable to hold. It's also heavy enough to feel decently high quality, and it doesn't fatigue your hands playing it. One thing I'm noticing is the triggers feel a little bit thin on the top. It feels like when you're putting your finger up here, there's only a small amount that makes contact with it, but it does feel like high quality, and it's pretty comfortable. There's a good amount of grip to hold on to on the back, so it is a very comfortable controller, and I do really like it. The 8BitDo Ultimate 2C Wireless is a little bit different. Instead of flaring out on the bottom, it kind of crunches your hands in the middle. I don't necessarily find this less comfortable. It's just a different styling. It is still really comfy. Plastic does kind of feel a little bit more clammy in your hands since it's got a little bit more grip to it, but it is still really comfortable to hold on the back. I do really like this controller, and I think it has really decent ergonomics. By comparison, the KK3 Max is probably the most comfortable out of the 3. I really like this controller. I also like how this controller feels heavier than the other 2. It just kind of adds to the overall quality feel of it. You can also attach paddle to the back of this, which makes it feel like really high quality too. There's a nice amount of contact with your fingers, so it feels really comfortable to hold on to at the top. The joysticks are also perfectly positioned, just like the EasySMX. All in all, just a very solid grip on this controller. So if I had to position all 3 of these, I do think the KK3 Max is the most comfortable, then followed probably by the EasySMX, and lastly the 8BitDo Ultimate 2C Wireless. Now that doesn't mean that this is not a comfortable controller. These are all extremely comfortable controllers to use. I did talk about the build quality a little bit on these controllers already, so I don't really think there's anything else that we need to mention. Build quality wise, I would say that the 8BitDo Ultimate 2C Wireless is the most durable and premium feeling of the 3. The KK3 Max would come in second place. I just find the extra weight on this over the EasySMX, making this feel a little bit more high quality. But the EasySMX does feel like a solid controller. It's just a little lighter than I'm used to. These 3 are the highest end controllers that I own personally. How heavy are they exactly? The 8BitDo Ultimate 2C Wireless comes in at 220.8 grams. Pretty solid weight for a controller, and this is kind of where you'd want it to feel decent quality. Taking a look at the KK3 Max, this is even heavier at 252.6 grams. As mentioned, this is not for everybody, but I like that extra weight just because it makes it feel just ever so slightly higher quality. And the EasySMX D05 comes in at 219.3 grams. So this is actually very close to the 8BitDo Ultimate 2C Wireless. There's about a gram difference between the 2. These are almost on par. This is pretty comparable to a few other controllers, but how do all the controls actually feel on this? The face buttons have a nice rubber membrane connection, they're not too loud, and they do feel a little mushy. The start and select also feel very similar. It's also worth noting that there's very little wiggle on these face buttons. The D-pad feels really high quality. It is kind of soft and it does kind of bottom out. It's pretty typical from what I've seen from EasySMX. It is kind of clacky when you put it towards the outside edge. I like the subtle flare this D-pad has. It's pretty nice, isn't it? The joysticks are a little bit different. These joysticks here feel very close to what the ROG Ally X feels like. These have a nice concave cap and it's very rubbery, which makes it extremely grippy. There's also a little bit of texture on the outside edge. These also have an anti-friction ring, which makes them very smooth. This should prevent wear on the joystick stem, which should increase the longevity of this controller. L3 and R3 is there, and it's a little clicky, but not too loud. The bumpers have a slight click to them. It's actually really nice. You can press it anywhere, and there's not a lot of pressure difference. I also really like the texture that they have on these. It's pretty nice. These triggers are definitely the star of the show on this controller. I really like the gold accents as mentioned. There's also a little bit of texture on these. These do look like metal, but it is just plastic. The D-pad also kind of feels like metal, but I'm pretty sure it's just plastic. On the back, these programmable paddles are pretty decent. There's a little bit of texture on them that's kind of interesting. I've never really seen that before on back paddles. Starting things up shows us the nice RGB on this controller. It looks really cool, and it actually kind of comes through the shell. I've gone ahead and connected this to the 2.4 GHz USB dongle, and everything appears to be working. So the joysticks don't seem to be perfectly centered, not necessarily an issue, and you can calibrate this. The triggers also seem to have a nice range of pressure, and both of them seem to work really well. Testing all the other buttons, everything seems to be working. The D-pad works really well too. Even the back buttons are registering properly. Let's give the circularity a quick test. So just like the KK3 Max, these are very accurate at 0.3% on both joysticks. Next up, I'm going to test the polling rate. All I have to do is run this program and move the joystick around till it gives us 4,000 samples. They're advertising 1,000 Hz, so let's see if it's 1,000 over 2.4 GHz. You can already tell this is definitely a fast controller. The polling rate is sitting at 1,000 Hz, just over 1,000 Hz. We also have very little jitter at 0.04 milliseconds. This is really good to see. This is giving me about 1 millisecond input latency. Not bad overall. I am going to run this one more time just to see if the results are any different than this test here. Again, I'm going to run that 4,000 samples, and I'm just going to rotate that joystick to give us all the results. This was even better than the last results. This is 1,100 Hz. That's the fastest I've seen on any controller. So it is still giving me under 1 millisecond input latency. I'm pretty impressed with this controller so far. How does 1,000 to 1,100 Hz actually translate to real world games? Well, let's check it out. One of the games I like to test input latency on is with Sonic Mania. I just find this game really easy to test that for. So just to show you how accurate and how quick this is, I'm going to press this button, and as soon as I press it, you should see Sonic jump. I'll try to slow this down in post so you can just see how quick this is. If you're really sensitive to input latency, I don't think you're going to be bothered by this controller. It's actually really responsive. So the D-pad's actually not bad either for this game. One thing I'm noticing is just that clackiness. Not necessarily annoying, just something to take note of. Yeah, for retro gaming, this is definitely a great little controller. Since this has really nice analog triggers, I definitely have to try that. So I'm going to load up Wreckfest just to see how well it works. These are very smooth triggers, so it should be really good for this kind of game. So I'm going to let the cars go ahead of me here so I can try this out. Just pull off to the side here, and yeah, so I'm going to push this down ever so slightly. Keep your eye on that speedometer down here. You're going to be able to see that increase ever so slightly. So it does look like there's a little bit of wiggle room ever so slightly before it starts registering. Then it builds up gradually, and there's a nice range to that. You can also see the rumble kind of here at the bottom because it's transparent. This is actually the best rumble that I've seen in a third-party controller. It's got a very low rumble to it, but it doesn't feel cheap. Sometimes it feels like the rumble on these third-party controllers, the rumble kind of feels like it's loose in the controller and you can hear the plastic rattling. This, however, is definitely not the case with this controller. This is definitely a good controller for racing, but as mentioned, yes, I am really worried about the plastics on the front of this controller. The back is a completely different plastic, and this isn't going to have the same problems. I've already got a few of these little marks on here just from opening it, and I've been really careful with it so far. I can't get these off either, and you can see some marks just from holding the controller on the other side too. I think this is going to have the same issues as my KK3 Max has. The soft plastic is definitely comfortable, but longevity wise, I am slightly concerned. Another thing I just kind of noticed, this is really weird, but I've never noticed this on any other controller, is this USB dongle. Because it's pulling so fast, it's actually making this metal adapter extremely hot. Yeah, so that adapter is at nearly 50 degrees Celsius. I have never seen anything get this thing this hot. Obviously that plastic is going to be a little cooler, but the metal part that connects to the actual adapter is pretty warm. One thing I also want to show you is just how bright these LED lights are on this controller. So I'm going to go ahead and shut off my studio lights just so you can see the LEDs a little bit clearer. This is with all the lights shut off. The only light that's coming in is from a window just to my left side. There's not much light coming in though, so let me turn it on. You're going to see just how bright that is. So there's a little bit of light bleed around the joysticks, not much around the bottom, This translates to a little bit of light bleed up at the top as well. There's a little bit of light bleed on the left side. The right side has no light bleed at all. And there's a little bit of light bleed coming out through the bottom. This isn't something that's going to bother me personally, but if this bothers you, just be aware of it. There's also a little bit of light bleed coming through the back, but it's not too bad. Most of the light bleed is coming through the left side and of course on the bottom. So let's turn those lights back on. The manual is pretty big, but we can learn a few different things from it. You can actually switch the mode here by using the Y button and the home button. This is going to enter the switch mode. You can also use the Bluetooth mode by pressing the home button and X. And the 2.4 gigahertz mode can be connected using the B button and the home button. There's also a mode switching setting here. It shows you how to use the turbo setting and how to adjust the lighting. Looks like there's a couple different lighting modes, so let's try those out. All you have to do is press the function button and the right on the D-pad. So you can do like a solid color. There's a breathing mode, kind of a cycling through the colors mode, pulsating mode. You can adjust the brightness of the LEDs by pressing the function button and left on the D-pad, or you can shut that off completely. You can also adjust the vibration intensity by pressing the function button and up, or function button and down to lower that. Rumble is something I'm definitely surprised about on this controller. It's a lot better than I thought it would be. Yeah, definitely check your manual if you have any questions. There's a lot in this package and there's a lot of stuff to learn. It does take about 2 or 3 hours to charge it fully. My tests also indicate that the charging time is roughly 2 to 3 hours as well. Last thing we need to test out is the dock. I'm going to connect this to my USB-C cable that I have plugged in for my keyboard. I've connected the controller and it's really not charging that fast. I'm looking at around 1 watt charging. However, this might be pretty much charged already, so that might be why it's slowing down. Charging speeds do tend to slow down the fuller it gets. So what are my final thoughts on the EasySMX D05? I think it's a good controller. Do I think it's worth their asking price? I think it's a little expensive for what it is. If this controller here was about $10 cheaper, then it would definitely make a compelling argument. However, EasySMX always has coupons. If there's any of those, I'll leave that link down below. Do I think this is my new favorite controller? I think the 8BitDo Ultimate 2C wireless is still my favorite. I just like the design on this, and the plastic on the front is much better at resisting fingerprints. The anti-friction rings on this also feel much smoother, so if I had to rate these controllers in order, it's pretty tough. The 8BitDo Ultimate 2C wireless is still my favorite. Coming in second place though, I do like the build quality on the KK3 Max better, but the polling rate, the jitter, and everything else just seems to be much more responsive on the D05 than the KK3 Max. The only thing this one has going for it is the build quality. So this is my favorite. I'd probably put this in second place and this is third place. But let me know which controller you like in the comments below. Do you have any of these and what do you think of them? Let's go over the pros and cons of this controller just to sum it up. Best feature about this controller is definitely the joysticks. They're really comfortable. They remind me a lot of the ROG LIX and they have a good range of motion. These are some of the best joysticks I've seen on a controller. I really like the gold accents as well. The D-pad is a little clacky for some reason. That's not something I'm a big fan of. I also really like the face buttons. The font looks really clean and I love the transparent black plastic on the back. The biggest downfall of this controller in particular is definitely the front plastic. If they just stuck to using this fogged transparent black plastic on the front, I think it would have been a really nice controller. I'm always just really concerned about the longevity of plastics like this. They also attract a ton of fingerprints and it's really hard to clean. But those are my only two gripes with the controller: plastics and the clacky D-pad. Aside from that though, it's pretty solid. If those two don't bother you, I think you'll be pretty happy with the D05. But let me know what you think of the D05 in the comments below. Do you have any questions? Make sure to let me know in the comments as well. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks for watching.